Welcome back. Another massacre, another glaring lack of consensus. Just days after a shooter killed 17 at a Florida high school, there's little appetite in Washington for a big debate on guns. And now one Republican donor says his party needs to ban so-called assault weapons. And until they do, he's not writing them any more checks. Republican donor Al Hoffmann is joining us now. Sir, thank you for taking the time. You wrote in an email sent to other donors and politicians, "It's the end of the road for me." Why now? Why this shooting?
Well, Anna, let me say this. I have a very close affinity with the folks out at Parkland. For years, my company, WCI, was the lead developer in Parkland. We built thousands of homes there, the golf courses, the clubs, the retirement communities. I watched the Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School start construction, get finished, opened and dedicated. And so I've developed a personal affinity with the students. It's a great community, middle class, upper middle class. And when the tragedy occurred, I heard it instantly on the television, and I felt my heart just drop. I felt I was holding my heart in my hands. And so the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what I had been doing, which was hounding elected officials to vote for better gun law control, was not going to happen. So I felt I had to do it on my own. I was the Republican National Committee Finance Chair for 2 election terms. One for George W. Bush in 2000 and one for his re-election in 2004. And I was partly responsible and helped a lot of other people raise over $600 million for the election. And I was proud to do it because I'm a conservative Republican, and I always have been and I always will be. But when that tragedy occurred now, I thought, my God, what can we do? And the only thought that came to me is that now I've got to adopt a plan whereby we contact every Republican donor around the country to endorse the adoption of a ban on assault weapons. The majority of people in the country are for that.
Let me ask you about this email in contacting and reaching out to every single Republican Party donor in your Rolodex, is how you put it in the New York Times. You want to try to get them on board. Have people responded, and are they receptive?
I believe they are. It was the letter went out Saturday, but I have heard from a couple of them already, and they're endorsing the concept totally. And I'm still waiting to hear back from the others. But I believe that we can start a movement of consensus here and be successful in achieving our objective. Again, I was so blown away by the occurrence of that tragedy and to realize what happened to all those school children. And all I really want to do is to restore sanity and adapt this assault weapon ban and be able so that our children can get back in school and be safe and not get shot. I want to be able to drop my child off at school, my grandchildren, and know that they know what they're doing. And I believe that with this federal assault ban legislation is a great first step in doing that.
We hear from gun rights proponents, guns aren't the problem, it's who's getting the guns.
Well, you know what? That's fine and good, but I still believe that that was a totally preventable catastrophe that happened. That gun could have been avoided. That gun massacre could have been avoided. That gun would not have been sold to that kid if he had gone through a background check and if in fact the authorities at the school had the authority to grab that gun away and take him into custody for examination.
And the bottom line is he did get through a background check, and we apparently have learned that he did see therapists because people did flag him. So a lot of people have said that this kid, what turned teenager, an adult, that he slipped through the cracks. He was one of those that should have been flagged and dealt with along the way. The system failed here. But let me ask you about what you're trying to accomplish. And I know Governor Rick Scott has for a long time been in the camp of it's not worth changing gun laws. That's not going to do anything. But he suggested to our Wolf Blitzer that he's willing now to do something on guns. Let's listen.
Are you ready to commit your political team to work to tighten gun control, gun restrictions in the state of Florida?
I'll be stronger than that, Wolf. Everything's on the table. All right, I'm going to look at every way that we can make sure our kids are safe.
So I know you sent your email to Governor Scott. Do you think he'll follow through? Do you think the governor's willing to consider banning AR-15s?
Well, I'm going to try to persuade him to do that when we talk in a short while. I love Rick Scott. I want him to run for Senate. I believe that he was to be a best Republican that we could vote into office, and I'm going to ask him to endorse that principle of banning assault weapons. That's the litmus test. If he does, I would be glad to support him and continue to raise money for him. If he doesn't, in all good conscience, I don't see how I could vote for him. That's just the way it is. I hope he changes his mind.
A lot of people are listening and thinking, what power do you really have with the amount of money you donate compared to what the National Rifle Association donates when you think about people like Senator Marco Rubio, who we know has received more than $3 million from the NRA? How do you compete with that?
You know, I don't care about the NRA. And you know, to give you an example, President George H.W. Bush doesn't care about the NRA. He gave his membership card up years ago, and he said, who the hell is the NRA anyway? And I applaud him for that.
But a lot of these senators and lawmakers do care about the NRA, clearly.
Well, they do, but that's their point. If they want to do that, that's fine. Look, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment rights. There's no doubt about it. I have a concealed weapon permit, and I might add that I carried it for years in a bag underneath my car. For years I carried it. Now I have not carried it for a while, but I do have a loaded handgun at home. And I believe in that. I believe in a concealed weapon permit. And you know what? Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in Florida have been granted a concealed weapon permit. And to my knowledge, not one murder can be traced to the fact that it was issued to a concealed weapon permit holder. So I don't know that that's an issue. You know, who cares about the NRA? They're not my party. They're not. I don't care what they do, as long as
they have a lot of control over your party, though, and that's, I guess, the issue at hand. Al Hoffmann, I didn't mean to cut you off. Why don't you finish your thought, and then I got to say goodbye. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. I just want to make sure that we do this in a safe and sane way, and the first effort is to get the law passed. The second effort would be to establish organizations which are taking care of the kids in school, know how to love them, train them, get off this violence that's on the rappers and the violence and the foul language, obscene language that we hear over the videos all the time. Train the kids, train up the kids, and hope that they can live and become good citizens. That's my main concern.